Try not to be mean, but sometimes my face just falls out of my mouth. Oh, meeting Jeff. Oh, that's not this. That's y'all. Anywho. They sitting it down.
So I sent the phone out.
Huh? I'm trying not to fall. You're good.
What's going on today?
Huh?
What's going on today?
I didn't want to come to work today. I just wanted to say that you don't know how discombobulated it is to open your shades and they bam, people. It's like, hi. Are you here to kill me? You don't look like you're here to kill me. You're wearing some very reflective gear. And it's broad daylight on the busiest street in the neighborhood. It would be a really bad idea to commit a crime right now. Maybe you're a dumb criminal though.
Hmm?
Like, good thing they weren't outside of Ashley's window. Ashley would have lost her shit. I'm a little bit nervous about the school thing. I'm not really impressed with like their ask for uh what should be written in it or what the speech should be on. But I think we can tie our stuff to it just fine. Are you in the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you muted? Or
Yes.
can everybody that's there hear me?
Well, good morning, everyone. Good to see you all this morning for our October edition of our OPI's Education Advocates. I'm Christy Mockstutz, the Assistant Superintendent here at the OPI. Thanks for joining us on this fine Tuesday morning. And I wanted to start out by mentioning that our Teach Act applications are available and ready to go. You can find a link to those applications directly from our website. And then in addition, we've had, you can see what we have communicated out to the field as far as these Teach Act applications, the due dates. These are due, the applications are due by December 1st. December 1st is a Sunday, so make sure that you take that into account. School districts have already started to submit those applications. And so you can see here, Brian is sharing that information. We've had 36 districts who have applied. 18 of those have qualified from our first class school districts, and then second and third class districts. We've had 116 apply and 78 districts qualified so far. Again, those applications will be open through December the 1st, but we already have a lot of districts who have submitted these for the Teach Act. So thanks, Brian, for sharing that information. If you have any questions, again, the link is right on our main webpage, but please feel free to reach out to me or to Brian O'Leary, our communications director, and we'll get you connected with the right person for any questions on that. Our first topic for today is our ESSER update with Wendy Fawn. So Wendy, I'm sure, oh, there, I see you on, so go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Christy. So I just didn't have too much to report this morning. We are still spending down on the ESSER funding. Just wanted to let everyone know that those funds had to be spent by the 30th. So now we're just sort of doing the paperwork processing for the next couple of months to get all of those things into the federal government as their compliances require. We are doing a lot of closeouts with districts. We're walking through all of ESSER to make sure that there's consistency built within the documentation so that if there are future audits, it's easier to review all the records. we are continuing to work on those. There are a lot to do, but districts have been very helpful in closing out and walking through all that paperwork that needs to be done. We have regular meetings that are occurring every week. We have office hours on Thursday, but also whenever any school district needs it, we're in Zoom almost constantly, and sometimes in Zoom and Teams at the same time. So that's pretty much all we have to report, just that we're closing everything out and moving forward with that. And we appreciate all the districts working with us on doing that closeout.
Thanks, Wendy. We appreciate that. Update on our ESSER funds and the closeout of those funds. Our next topic for today is our fall student count with Paul Taylor. And I see that Brian's sharing that screen. And Brian, do you see Paul? I don't see him on my screen.
Paul may not be here. So it looks like he's not going to be able to join right now. But basically, he just wanted to update that out of the 392 districts, we have 142 that have submitted numbers. So that's at 36.2% of our districts have submitted. And the due date for the count is this Friday, the 18th. So districts have through Friday to submit their count information.
Thanks, Brian. So this is a good update for along the way as we're finalizing those fall student counts. And once those numbers are finalized, we'll have that specific number to be able to share. So thanks, Brian. The next update is on our Indian Education for
Christy.
All. Oh,
Sorry,
yes.
before we move on, do we have
hi.
Do we have any information on some of our early literacy students, either from the summer or that are doing the 4-year-old program right now, or is that something that we have to wait until this Friday for?
Yeah, we'll get those finalized classroom-based numbers again at this Friday, McCall. So we'll have more specific numbers we'll be able to share at our next Advocates meeting about
Thank you.
that. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. All right, any other questions before I move on? Okay, sounds great. So our next topic is the Indian Education for All payment. And we just wanted to give you an update on this because in the 2023 legislative session, the legislature revised the Indian Education for All payment requirements. They added some new reporting requirements, and they put in a qualification that if a school district reported revenues less than what they are reported expenditures less than what they received in revenues, they could potentially in the following year, they would lose some of that Indian Education for All payment money. And so this was a new legislation in 2023. And here at the OPI, we've been busily working with the schools to ensure that they're reporting the necessary information based on this new legislation. And so as you can see on this slide, where they revised some of that information was in the reporting requirements on schools reporting how they're using that funding, and then ensuring that they are reporting on their trustee financial statements. So Brian, if you move to the next slide, you can see that what we incorporated here at the OPI were two parts of this reporting. We have a part one where schools reported their assurances that they were using their Indian Education for All monies appropriately, and then what they are using those on. We incorporated this into the Teach Montana platform where schools are entering their accreditation information. They also entered specific information on how they were spending that Indian Education for All funding. I've talked about this during this meeting a couple of times before this, so that's not new information, but we actually have some information on that data that schools submitted that I'll share here in a couple of slides. So that was due at the end of March this past year. And then the trustee financial summary was due September the 15th, with it needing to be finalized by December the 10th if schools had any adjustments that they needed to make for those trustee financial summaries. Any schools, we only had about 62 school districts this year report a discrepancy in their Indian Education for All revenues and expenditures. And our school finance department sent out letters to each of those schools, noting that there was a discrepancy noted there and reminding them that they have until December the 10th to input any corrections through our school finance unit. Go ahead and go on to the next slide, Brian. And so just what did schools report on these new reporting requirements this year? Well, 100% of schools did submit reports for this part one, this sort of narrative piece of the Indian Education for All reporting and assurances in the spring of 2024. So that's great. There were about 20 schools who reported no detailed expenditures. So our IFA team has been contacting those schools to support them in implementation supports for that. And then the lowest expenditure that schools reported was staff time devoted to the development of inquiry-based curriculum. So again, OPI's IFA team is using that information to support schools and reach out to schools to help with that implementation within schools. One of the things that our team does, the IFA team here, is they host a virtual monthly gathering for all educators on the first Tuesday of each month. And you can find those office hours listed on our calendar on our OPI website. So Brian, go ahead and go to the next. And then just these next few slides show you exactly what schools were reporting that they used their Indian Education for All payment monies for. For example, that first box on the left there says purchasing quality instructional materials that are tribally specific, culturally authentic, and historically accurate. And so you can see that many schools said yes. The one that I was talking about, you see on the right, is the staff time devoted to the development of inquiry-based in-depth units. You can see a lot of schools reported no here. So we see that that's an area that schools could use some support in. And again, that's where our IFA team is really stepping up and providing support around that in that implementation. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Brian. And again, here are a couple of other questions. We have consultation and training with a qualified IFA specialist. We have expenses associated with staff professional development. And you can see the numbers of schools there who are saying, yes, we used our Indian Education for All payment funds for this. We used our Indian Education for All payments for that. Next slide is I think there's 3 more on the next slide. And yes, so you can see here that these 3 questions show that schools they used compensation for staff time specifically to a school or district in IFA coordination planning efforts, providing resources to bring tribal presence to the school environment, or compensation for a guest lecture, lesson, or learning activity. So you can see that schools really are using their Indian Education for All payments for these very specific activities. So that is that was the end of those questions that schools submitted. Again, this was through the Teach Montana system at the end of March, and their assurances per that new legislation last year. Any questions on that before we move on to our next topic? All right, I don't see any. So our next topic is an accreditation update with Crystal Andrews. I'm sure Crystal's on the line.
I'm here. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thanks, Crystal.
So quick update from our last meeting. I met with you in September. Since then, we have released the Criterion Reference Guide for districts. That guide is what we worked very tirelessly with our think tank on, and we made a lot of changes from year 1 to year 2. Most of those being just a really clean alignment with ARM. We had ARM pulled up of 1055 accreditation standards with our rubrics we were creating and made sure that the language was exactly from ARM. We discussed removing the terminology strong, moderate, and limited from the rubrics and really just made it ask what the question is and not showing it like strong evidence or moderate evidence. That was something the think tank thought should be removed this year. So that was done. There is a guidance section, and I'll pull it up here in just a second after I talk through it a little bit. There is a guidance section that really talks through each rubric, what some of the, answers, some of the, like just to assist with the questions. And then there are sample evidence like we provided last year, but I feel like this year, the think tank spent a lot of time coming up with evidence that would be something that it would be easy for a superintendent or a district to come up with. I see Janelle here. We did talk through working with consortiums and, some of that evidence like assessment plans or something, that could be supported if, a district utilizes the consortium. We are planning to meet with our consortiums and talk through that so they understand what might be coming their way here in the next few weeks. So just a lot of collaboration, hoping to make this, your second year be less, well, definitely less of a surprise to some districts, but also just a little bit more provided to show them that, we've done this through year one and these are the things remaining in year two. And here are some evidence pieces that should be easy for you to get your hands on. We are very aware there are a lot of new superintendents. We have a new superintendent session coming up in November to support new superintendents. And so it's really just, trying to make it as easy as possible and just starting the year off, diving right into the work. As you can see on the timeline, I know it's really tiny. This is also on our accreditation website. Our platform will open December 2nd. That platform is going to be in the Teach Montana system, but it'll be its own platform, its own accreditation place. There will be a save button, everything that superintendents and districts are, concerned about will all be taken care of. And it will be very easy. The rubrics will be there in alignment. So we're really hoping for a nice transition into the second year. And then after this year, we'll go into that 3-year cycle. So that's to come, but really where our focus is just getting districts started, looking at the criterion reference guide and seeing what will be expected for this year. We'll be providing a lot of opportunity to work with districts. We'll be doing our work sessions where we have hour slots for districts to sign on and, show us what they have, ask questions to my team. We have office hours that started on October 1st. They're actually today from, I believe, 3:30 to 4:30. So that's on our website as well. If districts just want to come on and ask questions, and anyone can get on and ask questions about the process this year. And I think that is it. And if I can take over the screen for just a quick second, I think it'd be probably beneficial to show you how to get to this. Thank you, Brian. Okay. So this is the school accreditation website. You get there by going from leadership, assessment, accountability, and we're down towards the bottom, school accreditation. So you see that timeline is there again. The place to find the criterion reference guide is this first accordion button. You'll see here, this is this year's part 2 criterion reference guide. And then we did include the template. A lot of districts really liked, since the platform doesn't open till December 2nd. It just shows exactly what the question will look like for each of the questions and how it's being asked and what it will look like within the Teach Montana system. And as I said on that last sheet, the alignment between what's in the rubric and on that template is exact this year. There were a few areas last year that it didn't quite match perfectly, but this year it was a big, we really had each pulled up next to each other and made sure that they matched. So that is another improvement for sure. And then we did update part 1 rubrics and template. And really this is a good place if a district has to correct anything, if they have a corrective plan, those rubrics have been updated and aligned a little bit better. And if a district wants to improve a score, say they got a 1 or a 2 on a section, maybe it didn't impact their overall accreditation last year, but they want to improve that score, they have that opportunity this year to submit again an area from that first year as a part of their year 2 score. So I'm saying a lot. I'm sure to some this is probably, what is she talking about? And it is, something we continue to talk through, help districts understand, but I'm always here if there's questions. But I will just quickly pull up this reference guide for this year. It looks very similar to last year in terms of the branding and coloring. It tells us, it walks through how to get, accreditation status. What the areas are, obviously all directly taken from 1055 ARM. These are the new rubric sections and how, the point value and explaining, what I just tried to say quickly about, utilizing any areas in the first year and how the scoring will be done this coming year. I don't think Christy probably wants me to go into much more detail than that, but I'm happy to share at any time, more about the scoring or what it looks like. Like I said, we are holding sessions just for accreditation purposes that you can find on our website. We're adding them right down here as we add them, and they all will be recorded. So a lot of information, and then November 1st is that new superintendent session that we'll be holding. Anyone can attend, but it's really specific to those that may have not done this process yet. And I think I could talk forever, but I will end it there, Christy, and then if there's any questions, thank you.
Thanks, Crystal, and thank you for your team for all the work and availability that you have for districts as they work through this accreditation process. Any questions before we move on to the next topic? All right, I don't see any. So Crystal, you're on for our next topic again for the teacher licensing update.
Sure. So I was asked just to provide some data. I don't know as if we do this enough throughout the year. So I think it is a great opportunity. I share all the teacher licensing data with the Board of Public Ed in my January report. But this is a little sneak peek to where we're standing right now. So the superintendent asked me to provide numbers on our active licenses currently. And so you can see here all 8 classes of our license, 1 through 8. And how many active license we have. And what I mean by active license is that it's active, that they have a current license, but that does not necessarily mean they're using it. So I am a perfect example of that. I have 2 active licenses. I have a class 1 and a class 3. They are active, but I'm currently not teaching. So just because a license is active does not mean that they're, fulfilling a role in one of our districts. So that's just a little caveat to what I mean by active. But you can see those numbers there. And then for our non-licenses, and what I mean by that are, our emergency authorizations and internships. Our emergency authorizations come directly, well, actually both of them come directly across my desk. And I can tell you, I have been in this role. I think this may be my goodness, 3rd or 4th year, I think 4th, as issuing emergency authorizations. And it's only October 15th, and our numbers are higher than I've ever seen, unfortunately. 127 as of yesterday. I've already issued, I think, 5 more today. And I have a queue full. So it is something that obviously we want to try to get those numbers down. We have pathways to get licensure and, different opportunities, but it is something that districts are clearly still really over. You're not over, or just they're utilizing. And we just see that as, districts are trying to find someone to fill these roles. And, I give them, applaud them for, finding somebody, getting that person in, but obviously we're seeing that there are quite a few that are not licensed. And for those, I'm sure everyone here knows, but an emergency authorization is an agreement with a district, not with it's not a teaching license. So they found somebody that may not have a teaching license, but they feel could fit the need and fill that role for the year. And it's a 1-year agreement between the OPI and the district. So like I said, those are still coming in. They can come in really throughout the year. Usually as we approach December, they sort of die down, but we do see a ton this year coming in. And then the second is internships. This is where it's similar to a class 5. I'm sorry. Similar class 5 provisional license. But that it's an agreement with a person who already has a Montana license, and they're enrolled in a program with one of our Montana EPPs where they're adding an endorsement to their license. So it's a year-to-year agreement, but they have 3 years to complete coursework to then add that an additional endorsement to their license. We're seeing a lot for special education, which is great. And that's probably, I would say, I don't have all the numbers in my head out of all 60, but there's a high number of special education, which we know is a high demand in our state. So that's just a little data sneak peek of what, McCall, you'll see at the board meeting in January, but the numbers, look good. We have a lot of licenses. We just need to try to get these people into the classrooms, but, our class 5 is our provisional license there with 623. Counselors and school psychs is our class 6, 892. Our tribal Native license is class 7, and then our dual enrollment is class 8. Class 3 is our administrators. So kind of gives you a little perspective to where we sit right now with our active licenses. And I think that is all I have for you today, Christy. Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. Any questions before we move on?
I have a quick question, Crystal. You used yourself as an example of somebody who has 2 active licenses, but you're not actually teaching. So do these numbers reflect individuals with multiple licenses? Like were you counted twice on here or once?
Great question, Trish. So I would be counted twice because I hold that class 1 and that class 3. So it's by the license, not by the person.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next topic today, we have our MAST launch and score report update. Our first MAST window has opened here for our assessment window, and Cedar Rose is here to give us an update on that. So Cedar, ready when you are.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So good morning, as Christy said, I'm Cedar Rose, Assessment Director with the Office of Public Instruction. I'm just going to provide a quick overview on statewide assessments and then dig into MAST. And like Christy said, we opened yesterday for our first operational year of MAST, which is really exciting. So here are other statewide assessments that we provide. The only change this year is that MAST assessment, instead of our the summative 3rd through 8th grade math and ELA assessment at the end of the year, that is now moved to our 3-year model, which allows districts to assess and receive information on their students throughout the year instead of one time at the end of the year. This window 1 just opened yesterday, and we'll dig in a little bit more to what that looks like. MAST is administered over 4 windows throughout the school year, a fall, a early winter, and then a spring, or a late winter, and then a spring window as well. Each one of those windows are 6 weeks. And the great thing about MAST is a local alignment to scope and sequence for math. So you'll notice in that math area, districts take, or students take between 3 to 5 testlets. And that's dependent on scheduling that has already been accomplished. Our districts went in from July to September, and they were able to individually align their scope and sequence of their math curriculum to the testlets that students take throughout the year. So students are being assessed only on content that they have been covered in a really short time from when they were instructed. So really exciting to get that immediate feedback, to be able to provide any sort of scaffolding or interventions or any of those things to ensure that our students are really building on those skills throughout the year. ELA, there are 2 testlets in each window, a literary and an informational. And then there's also a performance task in window 2, which is really exciting. Those are all human hand scored. So teachers are able to get that feedback returned to them to be able to help support that writing instruction throughout the rest of the year. We have a 4th anchor testlet that is our final testlet. That is for some field testing, some research purposes, and that's really our key, or our capstone assessment testlet. And each student will only take one of those. So looking at what is happening right now, window 1 is open as of yesterday. I was looking at some numbers yesterday of who tested, and we had 7,400 students test yesterday. So when we think about the overall testing population for 3rd through 8th grade, it's about 68,000 students. So we had about 10% of our students who were eligible to test yesterday which is just phenomenal that we had that much going on day 1. We've been supporting the field throughout that, and I know we have a bunch of schools testing today as well. Schools will continue to roster and enter accommodations throughout the window as things adjust. The bulk of that work was done leading up to the window. We know those adjustments will have to occur. Students in this window, in this 6-week window, will be taking 3 to 5 math testlets, depending on the scheduling that already occurred, and those 2 ELA testlets. And then the really exciting other thing about MAST is our score reports will be delivered the Thursday after a student tests. And so students that are testing this week, their teachers and their parents receive those score reports next Thursday, which is a really, really short turnaround. And I'm going to dig into a little bit of what those score reports look like. This is what we have been really pushing with our schools to talk about how can assessment and instruction work together. So we know that schools were providing instruction to their students from the moment they walked through the doors in some cases up into the point where that window opened. And so what we saw yesterday is we had a lot of teachers that decided to get that first testlet done. They wanted to assess on what has already been instructed. As this window continues, they're going to receive those score reports, use those score reports, provide additional instruction, and then test again throughout the window. So we're really breaking that summative habit of waiting until the last week of the window. And now we're able to assess, get that information, and make adjustments throughout the entire testing window, which is great. And all of our professional learning that we've done on this really paid off as we saw a large number of students test yesterday. Score reports for this year, there's really two levels of score reports for math. We have our testlet level reports, which provide pretty key information on what the student tested on, how they're doing on those standards, where they fit into performance bands compared to other students who have taken similar testlets. Then we even get down to item level information, and I'm going to show you some of that. So students receive those score reports on a weekly basis. Parents are able to get those through the parent portal, which simultaneously delivers them to teachers and parents who are signed up. So parents are able to stay informed in this process. When those are delivered on Thursdays, teachers also get a classroom report. So they're able to get a larger aggregated information on how all their students in their class are doing. And I'll show you an example of that. Schools and districts also get those reports, but we wait until the last operational window to get that cohesive. How did all the students within a school or a district do on a specific testlet? We also have our summative reporting. I'm not going to be presenting on that today, but that is our reporting that we have to do for federal accountability. That takes all of the testlets into consideration. We have to go through a process called standard setting, where we bring about 100 Montana educators together to provide those cut scores. And after that process, that summative score will be provided to teachers, families, and schools after the summer of 2025. So we're thinking early fall. Those will also be aggregated up to the classroom, the school, and the district level. Here's an example of what a testlet report looks like. So on the top, just very basic information about the student, what grade, content, and testlet they took, their testing date. The first this first piece of information is a performance. So this is where did the student perform relative to other students in the state who took a similar testlet. So band 1 is comparable to the lowest third, band 2 is the middle third, band 3 is the highest third. So you can really get a comparative, more of a normative feel of where your student performed on this testlet compared to other Montana students. And then the other exciting thing for math is we have misconceptions. So based on a pattern of responses the student exhibited throughout the testlet, we're actually able to pick up on common errors or misconceptions that student is having throughout the testlet. So a math teacher can go into here and say, okay, my students are incorrectly using substitution to evaluate an expression, and they'll be able to provide really targeted instruction to alleviate that misconception. Moving down on our testlet summary, it provides which standard or standards were assessed. Some testlets are single standards, some testlets are multiple standards, and it'll show the points possible and the points awarded for each one of those standards. So once again, a teacher can look at the standards. Where do we need to go a little bit deeper with some of those standards? And then also the question level items. So you can go through with a testlet level report with your student, say, okay, my student is struggling with evaluating understanding of, or a student's was not able to understand a sequence and series. You can see the credit earned on math. It's either correct, incorrect, or did not attempt if that student gets to the end of the window and does not have a completed testlet. So this is what the math looks like. The ELA is very similar. Once again, that banding, more of a normative look of how that student does. In ELA, we break it down into clusters. So we have 5 clusters of standards: key idea and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, knowledge of language, and vocabulary acquisition and use. So once again, being able to break that down to see where do students maybe need a little extra support, where are my students excelling. And then that question description as well. Only difference for ELA here is we have some items that have multiple parts to them. So we have some partly scored as well, but still getting the breakdown of how a student did on every single one of those questions, as well as what was that question assessing. I'm going to provide you a quick look at what the classroom level reports look like. Similar between math and ELA, I'm showing you a math report. It aggregates up all of that information. So in our summary results, you'll be able to see how your students performed within that band breakdown, how many students and the percent of students in band 1, band 2, and band 3. It's also going to show overall how did your students do on each one of those standards. So for this example, you would see that my students are doing a little bit better on 5 OAA2 compared to OAA1 compared to OAA2. So I can go ahead and I can adjust my instruction to really support those standards that my students are struggling in. It'll list all the misconceptions that my students demonstrated on that testlet for math and the number of students. So if I have a large number of students that are demonstrating that misconception, I might pull together another whole class lesson, a small group lesson, to go ahead and address those things that that my students demonstrated having misconceptions with. And then I'll have a student breakdown as well. So all of my students assessed within my classroom when they tested their performance band and their individual misconceptions. So really excited for a statewide assessment to be able to provide information and fine-grained information to really support instruction that we've never been able to do with our statewide assessment. So next Thursday, our teachers and our families are going to be able to see our individual reports, and then our teachers will get those classroom reports. So we're really excited to continue to support. We have a lot of professional learning leading up to the window, weekly throughout the window, and then specifically supporting our interpretation and use of score reports. So with that, I will pause for any questions.
Thank you, Cedar. I don't see any hands raised. Brian, do you see any hands raised for questions? I don't think so. Thanks, Cedar, for sharing that information. Sorry, Brian, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I don't.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Cedar, again, thank you so much for that complete look at our at this first testing window, our first assessment window of the year. Appreciate all that information. Our next topic for today is data modernization with Julia Carroll, and I see Julia on the line.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Okay, so I'm here to talk about PowerSchool and our data modernization and kind of brief you on where we're at now. PowerSchool has begun to populate our dashboards with real student data that is pulled from our Infinite Campus State Edition. We're working with PowerSchool on fitting that dashboard, making sure the labels are populated correctly and that there are no empty dashboards based on data that we're not populating in those areas. And OPI will QC those dashboards once they've been fitted, and we'll make sure that the data is correct and being populated correctly. We are finalizing the single sign-on solution to make sign-on into the system easier for school staff once we have deployed the dashboard system to them. So making sure that it's easy to get on, you're only going to see what you need to see, just sort of simplifying that process. Also, PowerSchool is loading assessment data to finish populating the assessment dashboards that we've created, as well as the GEMS data for the public-facing community engagement module. So that's going really well. We're at a pretty exciting time in the project. In fact, we set up a VPN connection for one on-prem PowerSchool district, which is Kalispell, and we're working on getting started, getting the other connections started for the other on-prem PowerSchool districts. And we're developing our training plan for schools, so keep an eye out for our communication on the upcoming training for using all these new products. And that's it. I can take questions.
Thanks, Julia. Are there any questions about the data modernization update? All right. I don't think so. And so we have moved on to the last, thanks, Julia. We've moved on to the last topic of our day today, and the superintendent has invited the American Legion representatives to share some program opportunities for students. So I believe that Eric or Dwayne are on to share some opportunities for students.
Thanks, Christy. I will share my screen here, or you can, you've got it pulled up, or I could share it. Let's see here. I want to. Share it. There we go. Right, so thank you for inviting me to give a little brief. My name's Dwayne Cunningham. I'm the adjutant for the American Legion. And what the American Legion is a veteran organization. But a lot of things that people don't realize is we've got a lot of programs for kids. And I want to start by saying thank you for what you all do for Americans' children. A big part of our future, and that's something that as a veteran is important to me and important to the 1.6 million members that are Legion members across the country. We have a lot of things that the Legion does besides just try to lobby for veteran benefits and things like that. Some of the things the Legion has done over the years is the GI Bill. I'm sure you've heard of that. Recently, the second biggest thing that has probably come out of the Legion in the last 50, 60 years was the PACT Act, which opened up a whole bunch of benefits and opportunities for veterans that weren't qualified to get care, treatment, whatever. But those two things are probably the biggest things that people have heard of. But a lot of our programs that we do are targeted at kids and teaching them citizenship, teaching them about our Constitution, teaching them what it is to be an American. We are not, despite some of the rumors that are out there, we are nonpartisan. If you're going to invite a Republican to speak, then you got to invite a Democrat. We're very, especially this time of year, I do a lot of those phone calls. Hey, if you're going to invite one, you got to invite the other, or anyone else that's running for office under any party. You got to invite them all. So we're nonpartisan. The other thing that is interesting about us is the four pillars that we have that we are founded on have to do with the future of our youth, teaching good citizenship, things like that. So I just wanted to talk real quick about some of the opportunities that we have. We used to, our programs were bigger over the last 20 years. They've kind of slid. So I talked to Superintendent Artson simply about getting in and trying to teach everyone what is available. The oratorical contest that we have. It's developed to teach a deeper knowledge and appreciation of the Constitution. It's been around since 1938. What it does is really, we bring kids in at a post level, so a local community, and kids can speak on, they give two speeches, one 8 to 10 minutes long, one 3 to 5 minutes long, on an assigned topic on the Constitution. And then the second part they also do a 3 to 5 minute presentation or speech on a selected piece of the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. There's 4 topics potentially that they could speak on. When they get to the competition, they speak. We have a drawing, and they speak on that particular piece. It teaches the kids about the Constitution. B, it teaches them how to stand up in front of people and talk. That's a skill that, as you all know, it's something you got to learn. It's a difficult thing to learn. So, I mean, it teaches things like that. It starts at the post, moves on to the district, it goes to a district level, and then to the department or state level. We can have up to 11 contestants make the state level, and then one of the kids moves on as awarded first place, and they go to the national level which is held in Michigan in March, I'm sorry, in April. The top 4 places you can see there on your screen. First place is $5,000, a scholarship. Second place, it's all going to, the idea is to go to education down the road, college, get them into school. The other thing I got to mention that people forget or they assume, we're not recruiting kids to the military. If they want to ask me about it, I'll be more than happy to tell them. You know, I did 23 years in the Navy. It was good for me, but that's not what this is about. This is really about citizenship, teaching kids about our Constitution and the Bill of Rights and how we as Americans have a very unique our system that allows anyone to become whatever they want to be, and that's key for our government. We have the Boys and Girls State programs. This is the one that I enjoy the most. We bring in, we used to bring in around 400 kids, 400 boys, 400 girls. We've slipped over the last 20 years down to about 100, 150. What it is, we bring them in, we teach them, we set up communities. We have them, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead there. We have them learn how to write a bill. They go to the Capitol on, it's a week-long program. They start to make friends. They run for office, for everything from superintendent to senator to governor. I mean, you're running for a local, a position within local, county, and state government. The idea is to teach them how difficult sometimes it is to get the legislation passed. It's kind of funny when the kids get going, they think they've got something that'll pass, like we want to call our town, whatever. And when they try to get that through, they run into everybody's ideas and everybody's beliefs are different, and how to come together and support something is very interesting sometimes. We bring the kids into the Capitol on Thursday. They get into the Senate and the House chambers. The justices do their thing, and it's really a really neat and cool opportunity that the kids get, and they sit there and they try to pass legislation. They try to get a bill that they write passed, and it teaches them all kinds of things about our government and how it works and why it works the way it does. Local high school juniors we attend the program, so anybody going into the senior year this year would be eligible. The cost is $300, but our goal is to have that expense paid by a sponsoring post or a local business. Last year, all the kids, all their tuitions were paid, if not by the parents, but by a post or a business. So we had it all covered. This year's dates, 8 to 14 June 2025, at Carroll College is where we're holding it. Applications open early spring. It can be done online or via paper copy. I listed some of the folks that have been through the program, and it really opens kids up to the opportunity of not just becoming citizens, but into positions where they help. They become part of the community where they want to help people. Everybody that's sitting on this Zoom meeting right now had that calling to help. They wanted to teach kids. They wanted to do whatever. This is the same type of thing. I listed Ellen Norby there. She was our Girls Nation graduate last year. She went to the Capitol. That is something that we do. 2 boys and 2 girls are elected state senators. They go on to national. They do this at the national level. There's 55 departments in the country, departments meaning programs, and 2 senators from each state come in to the state capitol, and they do the same thing they did at the local state level. They do on a national stage. They get into the Capitol, they meet the senators and the representatives from their respective states, and they learn on a national level the same thing we teach them at the state level. And it's a really unique opportunity. Ella was our graduate last year. And I just saw the other day that she was named 2024 MSU Presidential Scholar. So it's fun to track where these kids go after they attend Boys and Girls State and who they become. It really is a life-changing experience, and the kids just have a lot of fun doing it. It's a week-long intensive class. We keep them busy about 10 to 12 hours a day. They're tired by the end of it, but they get a lot out of it. So that is our program for that. And talked a little bit about the national program they go on. There's also a Samsung scholarship they can, if they're descendants, if they have any descendants of wartime veterans, there's a scholarship there they can apply for. Anywhere from $1,250 to $10,000 if you win it. Another opportunity just simply to further their education, and that's really what we want to do. The smarter the citizen, the better. You know, the more they know about how our government works and what our Constitution means. We've got the American Essay Contest. It encourages citizenship and critical thinking, open to students in grades 7 to 12. They write a paper about the principles of American citizenship. There are scholarships awarded at that level, at the post level in the communities across the state. So that is out there. Montana Government Survey Program. It's basically a little test. You guys were talking about testlets and things like that. This is a test on federal and state government. It's open to high school seniors and 7th and 8th graders. Submission deadline is 15 April. I can get you that information on all this stuff we're talking about today, but you can see there's scholarships for those as well. Money involved in that for future education. What can I ask you for help on? Just raising awareness during school events, you know, just getting the word out on these opportunities that kids have. Not everybody, it seems like, and I'm sure you can attest to this, during the summer now, when I was in school, you went to work on a farm, you did whatever. Now there's so many opportunities out there for, you know, everything from sports camps to whatever. It seems like it's a full-time pull on the kids to be able to do stuff. So our program is slipped a little bit as far as attendance, and that's what we're trying to get out the word to get kids involved in this type of stuff. You can contact me. My email address is there. My phone number is there as well. The last thing I've got for you, I put links to the 2024 Oratorical Champion speech. She was from Renton, Washington. I've listened to it a couple times. It's very inspiring. And that is probably the biggest piece that I take. And it's all volunteers that run these programs. And it's what we get out of it is that reminder that our future is in good hands with some of the kids, and why they're in good hands is because of the teachers that are out there teaching them everything they need to know how to get through life and things like that. The second resource there is just a 8-minute video on Boys and Girls State. If you're interested in showing that, or just yourself learning a little bit about it so you can speak on the topic, feel free, but definitely reach out. What we're wanting to do is down the road here, Brian's going to get this out to everybody, and then the local post in the local communities will be reaching out to the schools, seeing if they can come in and give a little spiel like this on the different programs and get kids interested. Because one of the things, the young lad from Whitehall last year, he was our Samsung Scholarship winner, and his paper, what he wrote, one of the things we asked, one of the questions was, what can the American Legion do better? And he went into a big, long spiel on just getting the word out, getting the word out on opportunities and programs, because a lot of the kids that aren't, they want to do different things. They want to get involved, and these type of opportunities they just don't know about. So that's the idea behind this today. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. I'd be happy to either come out and give a speech at the school, or a parent teacher conference day, or whatever you've got set up to where you know, the kids and the parents are together, because the parents don't know about this either. They're not getting the word. So I appreciate your time and thank you for letting me have a little bit of your day. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. I see one hand up. Trish, do you have a question? Oh,
Gio?
Sorry, I was on mute. Dwayne, I wanted to thank you so much for giving this presentation because I definitely see the value in spreading awareness and how easy it is to bring to our communities. So thank you for that. I had a quick question about the Boys and Girls State programs. You had mentioned that the cost is $300. Is there an application process, or is it usually open to everyone who can pay the fee?
Right now, it's open to everyone. Our idea is if a kid wants to go to this program, we're gonna find a way to get him into it. So, if the $300, you know, some households, $300 might as well be $3 million. So, you know, if a child wants to apply, if a kid wants to come into the program, they apply, and we'll reach out to a local post, and the local post will pick up the tab for that. And if they can't do it, if they get 2 or 3 kids that want to go, and the post says, hey, that's getting a little steep, we have posts across the state that are willing to pay that $300 on behalf of a kid on the other side of the state if they don't have a kid that wants to go. So we'll find a way to cover that cost. That is not the showstopper. That's for sure. We want to make sure that if a kid wants to go and you know, we want to get him into the program.
That's great. Thank you.
You bet. Again, if you think it's something down the road, just reach out to the email address or the phone number listed, and we'll get right back to you and get you whatever you need.
And Dwayne, I just want to say thanks for all the work you do. I was also a Girl State kid, and often think that it's probably one of the first times that I was really sort of engaged in politics and government, and that's exactly where I am now. So just really want to thank you for that trajectory. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. And it's good to know that there's a Girl Stater out there, because that you know, that makes a difference, all the difference in the world. So thank you much.
Yeah, there are many out there that I remember from my time at Carroll.
It's a lifetime friendship. You know, I'm sure you've still got friends that you went through Girl State with. So it's a lifetime deal.
I sure do.
great.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks, Dwayne. And thanks everyone again for joining us today. As always, Brian will follow up with these with attachments for you all. So you'll have all of this information in your inbox from Brian. If you have any questions, you know where to reach us. Reach out anytime. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Good to see you.